Hi, my name is LaShawn Brinson. I did my final project on the impact of the LGBTQ culture on gender identity development in early childhood. I work in early childhood and I usually get questions about the role of play in gender identity with young children. But more recently, I've had more questions involving LGBTQ influence, whether it's from the community, the relationships with other people surrounding the child, the parents, siblings, and so on. A lot of my students are preschool teachers have questions around that as far as whether or not the children being raised in the environment today, pretty much, where there's so much exposure of the LGBTQ community on the lives of children, whether or not that influences their gender identity. So I looked at, various studies and researched some additional theories in addition to what we read in our textbook. And for the most part, there's different perspectives. Either we develop our identity based on our genetic makeup, male, female traits, according to our sex, and hormones, or we developed like stage theorists over time, our gender identity unfolds, or from a social context, we develop our gender identity in relationship with others around us and how their viewpoints, their perspectives, their spoken and unspoken messages, and the way we're treated in our environment, consequences of our choices and behaviors, all those things play a role in how our identity develops. In this case, from a socialization theorist perspective, the child is more of an active player in their own gender identity, whereas in the other two, essentialist and developmental, the child is more passive. For LGBTQ, just to clarify the definition, which is continuously expanding, lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer includes all races, ethnicities, ages, and socioeconomic statuses. And not sure what the most recent research may demonstrate, but in 2015, it was reported that 3 to 12% of adults in the U.S. represent the LGBTQ community. And pretty much it falls under the category of alternative families. We're slow to catch up in our research in relationship to families that are not your traditional, so-called traditional male-female households. Gender identity in early childhood develops across the board the same. The research studies show that it is no different for LGBTQ headed households, same-sex parents, and so on. The only difference might be in the way that the parents respond to a child's non-conforming behaviors to their biological genetic makeup for male or female. But as far as the way the identity develops in young children, it's the same across the board. So there's no higher influence for children being raised in same-sex parented households. And even with siblings play a role in influence a child's gender identity, but it's the fact that the sibling is the older sibling more so than just the fact that the sibling might be LGBTQ community gender identified. Sorry. So the influence it's not prevalent that LGBTQ influences the gender identity in young children. So if young children are exposed to LGBTQ gender related behaviors, it's a way of being influenced by their social context, just like other factors are, in how we treat other people, how we respond to different races and cultures, and so on. It's no overarching difference in how the child's gender identity is developed, but it does play a role overall in the child's identity, period, just like other factors in their social context. So the research is limited, and the research that's out there pretty much focuses on lesbian female same-sex families, and that Yeah, that's what most of the research is about. And pretty much children express their authentic gender identities through play and the choice of their materials. They're more open to go outside of the box when they're alone, playing alone. So kids might be more open to play with materials that may not be the social norm for them when they're not being watched by other people. And so they're more comfortable with being themselves. But at a very young age, they are aware of how people respond to the choices that they make. So non-conforming gender roles in the young age does not determine their gender identity later on in the later years. And some of the challenges is that pretty much based on how children witness other people being treated, how they are treated, and the responses, the spoken and unspoken messages, it influences their identity. So you really don't know. You can't make that determining factor at such a young age, in early childhood, because they're still trying to figure all that out. Um, and then so basically, the best part is what early childhood educators should do. And preschool teachers, early childhood educators, they struggle with this. But for the most part, the studies show that educators should welcome all families in early childhood classrooms. They should support children's exploration and interests. So as early childhood educators, we must be mindful of how we influence children's behavior and how we place judgment or send out signals or cues that make them feel that their choices and authentic ways of expressing themselves is not okay. We must promote flexible thinking in young children. So even if they do see something that's outside of the gender role norms or gender identity norms, that we help them think and be more flexible. And we should expose children to diversity in gender roles. Go outside of the box, outside of the norms, and then foster advocacy skills for within the children, for themselves and for others. And here are my resources. Thank you.